Hey, yo. What's going on, people? Man, this is monumental. This is monumental. For the three of us here, this is me and my two guests. This is monumental because this is the first time I've gone live on the King Mono show. The first time. Let's get some sound effects going there, actually. Yeah, this is the first time I've gone live on the King Mono show. So yeah, big freaking deal. Big freaking deal, man. Yeah, this is quite something. Quite excited, man. So thank you, those of you who are joining me today for the inaugural The King Mono show live stream, the first ever time I've gone live on this platform, which is pretty much something, you know, quite something. So yeah, I'm quite excited about this. Happy to have you all here. Gonna have to shove these on so I can hear what I'm doing. Yeah, fantastic stuff. Let's just
check what's going on here. 1 second. That's the sound effect. Check 1, check 2. Yeah, that's the deep voice sound effect.
I've got the
high voice sound effect too. You know, keep it interesting if I need to go there.
Okay, and that's my swearing one in case I need to tell you to piss off. Yeah, so yeah, cool. How's it going, everybody? 8 in the house, Juice Daily and Khalid. Very happy to have you, man. Thank you very much for joining me and making it so that I'm not streaming here by myself, man. What else have we got here? See, I've got to memorize these. This is my little streamer X, which doesn't unfortunately have labels. Okay, that one's worked. Yeah, there you go. I need my little Dragon Ball Z sound effect and my. Yeah, I'm gonna be using that one often. My impact. That one's needed occasionally. A little explosion. So yeah, okay, I found my screen. All right, let's get going. All right, so today's live stream, as you could see by the title, Tucker Carlson embarrassing himself, okay, or embarrassing the US with stupid questions for African leaders. I haven't watched the whole thing. I watched the first few minutes and I just thought, well, this is embarrassing. This is freaking well embarrassing. He asked the same, well, the kind of stupid questions that you'd expect someone in Tucker's position to ask, being that essentially he's in over his head. The first thing I thought when I saw this, and apparently this conference took place, the World Government Summit took place in Dubai. As you can see, all of those dish dashes on the screen, you can see them all scattered around. Okay, so this took place in Dubai, and obviously they've got some standing African presidents who were present. And so when I saw Tucker Carlson interviewing them, my first reaction was, what the hell is going on? That was my honest first reaction. I was like, why on earth, on God's green earth do they have Tucker Carlson conducting these interviews? We have essentially an alt-right, far-right. You might as well call him far-right now because he's basically friends. He used to be enemies, but now he's friends with Nick Fuentes and gave him a very reasonable platform. So he used to be just kind of like be conservative. Now he's kind of alt-right conservative. He's in that area where, you know, he's synonymous with Nick Fuentes, and he's interviewing standing African presidents. I felt like, well, I guess this is 2026. This is the kind of BS that we have learned to accept. You know, people who are well in over their heads, well above their station, conducting interviews at summits with, you know, these are, you could have had a PhD up there, you know, you could have had committed researchers, you could have had people with, you know, global political qualifications, etc. You could have had, you know, people who've worked for UN, etc., etc. And you get Tucker Carlson, get freaking Tucker Carlson up there to question African leaders. Like, I mean, Oh dear. You know, this is the world that we're in. So anyway, we're gonna review this video. Shout out to everybody who's in the chat: Juice Daily, Khalid, Rainy, Triple X, and Passport Flyer. Salute to you all. Thank you for taking the time to join me. It's much appreciated. And yeah, I think on that monumental note, we can crack on and have a look see and a listen to old Tucker Carlson. Quick question from Passport Flyer. Yeah, let's I'll answer this really quickly because I'm actually thinking I'm doing a video on this. It says, really quickly, what do you think of Deontay Wilder? So I think you're talking about his recent interaction with Simon Jordan. I believe that's what you're referring to. If you're gonna say just in general, I'm not a massive fan of Deontay Wilder. I see him as a bit of a whiner. If I'm going to be totally honest with you, he's a bit of a whiner, a bit of a whinger, a bit of a complainer. He can be incredibly dishonest. I say that as a Anthony Joshua fan, and as someone who's not just like I'm a fan of Anthony Joshua's character and his integrity, not just because he's a British Nigerian like me, but I'm a fan of him because he's got character, he's got integrity, and in most situations he's been proven to do the right thing. Whereas Deontay Wilder, I've seen him lie relentlessly. So if I'm going to talk on a personal level, not a massive fan. However, one thing I do like about Deontay Wilder is similar to what happened when he had that interview on Seconds Out with, I can't remember the host of Seconds Out, that black Radio Raheem, who I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of Radio Raheem. I think he's a bit of a sellout, if I'm going to be totally honest with you. He's very quick to throw black fighters under the bus in favor of the non-black fighters. But anyway, that's an aside. He had this whole outburst with Radio Raheem, which was similar to his outburst with Simon Jordan, and I appreciate that. I might not agree with all of his sentiments. I might not agree with everything he said. I might not even agree with the fact that them not believing him regarding Tyson Fury is racism, because in many ways he brought that on himself because of the way he behaved with Tyson Fury, the way they teamed up against Anthony Joshua. That made me lose pity for him. However, I still respect the fact that he stood on business. Like, he believed that was the case and he wasn't scared to say it. And you know what? A lot of black people are scared to say when they have experienced or been the victims of racism. And I think a lot of the time, a lot of white people, particularly white supremacists, rely on us being scared of speaking up about anti-black racism. They rely on us receiving it and being quiet about it, and then they can gaslight the entire public about it and say that it's not occurring. If the person who is in a position of power doesn't speak up about it, it never gets addressed. So Deontay Wilder gets my respect. Yeah, that's how I'm going to say that. He gets my respect for what he did with Simon Jordan. Simon Jordan's an idiot, and he's a bit of a racist as well. So whatever anyone says to him, I'm going to probably back them. So yeah, shout out to him. I'm going to do a bit of a video on it because there's a bunch of influencers now as well. I say influencers, a bunch of kind of like boxing content creators now making videos about that particular subject, and they are trying to frame it as though, oh, Deontay Wilder is so embarrassing. Oh my God, he's complaining about racism in 2026. And like, what you're seeing is the usual, what you'd expect to see from fragile white males who have to strike out whenever a black person mentions the word racism. It's like something we're not allowed to talk about, and you'll see them attack like a bunch of attack dogs whenever you see a black person speak about racism, whether it's justified or not. And so they've all kind of like joined ranks and decided that we don't like Deontay Wilder, blaming it on racism. And to be honest with you, his argument that it's racism is, there's lots of legitimate arguments that there was a lot of racism involved in terms of the way the entirety of Tyson Fury's career has been accepted. A lot of the cheating that Tyson Fury's done, a lot of the lying he's done, a lot of the things that just wouldn't be forgiven have been totally forgiven in this case. So, you know, there you go. All right, that's all I'm going to talk about now. I'm not going to talk about the Helen of Troy thing at the moment. I might come back to it, but I want to watch Birdman's video. There's a creator called The Birdman who you guys might be subscribed to, might not be. He's brilliant. I really like him. I rate Birdman very highly. He's done a video that keeps coming up on my feed about Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy. So I want to watch his video first of all, and build up my knowledge, because I don't know what's going on. So once I've watched this video and I've watched a few other videos, got an idea, I'll have an opinion on that, Rainy. Okay, let's start this video, man, because that's too much rambling. Let's get cracking. I think it's just silent here. It's not my thing. I think the audio kicks in later. At least I hope so. Yes.
Gentlemen, thank you for doing this. It's awfully nice of you to.
I'm going to do a quick check, guys, for everybody who's in the chat. Just throw me a 1 if the audio was coming through clear there for you. Just throw me a 1 in the chat. Throw me a 2 if you couldn't hear any audio when I just played it there for like the last 20 seconds. Let me know. I'm going to need a kind of confirmation from you before I kick play and carry on. All right, superb. Everyone can hear it. Thank you, guys. All right, let's carry on.
Do this. I'd just like to go right down the line. And first to you, President Nagawa, again, thanks.
So President Nagawa at the end, I believe, is the president of Zimbabwe, who's asking this first question to. I think we have the president of Zimbabwe, Botswana, and I want to say Senegal, who are present. Oh, Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone. So Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Sierra Leone presidents are present. Let's carry on.
In as clear terms as you can, I wonder if you would contrast your experience with China versus the Western powers. Do you think that Zimbabwe and other African countries, to be totally blunt, get a better deal from Chinese investment than they have with Western powers over the past 150 years?
Okay. So this, to start off with, and by the way, guys, I'm going to be pausing it a lot. Yeah, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I have to pause when he asks these questions because there's a lot to unpack here. All right, I could just play it, but I need to unpack what's being said at each stage. So the question he's just asked is, do you think Zimbabwe is getting essentially a good deal in comparison to the deal they had with the Western powers? Now, bear in mind, he's asking this to the president of Zimbabwe. Now, not to premise this too much, but Zimbabwe was a colony that was formerly called Rhodesia. Okay, it got its name Zimbabwe as part of changing it over from being called Rhodesia, which was named after Cecil Rhodes, who was one of the most barbaric, unjust, thieving, and heinous people out of the UK. I can't even call him a ruler. He was just a freaking person, okay? Freaking aristocrat who was just granted Zimbabwe. You know, this is how it worked back then. And he's asked the question to the president, the standing president of Zimbabwe, are you getting a better deal? As though there is some kind of comparison, some kind of equity to be made here. Oh, well, you know, you were trading with us before. First of all, there was no trade, okay? The Zimbabwe land reforms happened in 1998. The land reforms was the period of time when Mugabe said, we are going to take our land back. The only reason the land reforms came to pass is because England rescinded over and over and over and over again on its promises to graduate the redistribution of land back to the Zimbabwean people. They treated Africans like they always treat Africans. They thought they were dealing with idiots. Okay, they thought they were dealing with morons when they dealing with Zimbabwe's government. And what had happened is the Labour government had just come to power, and the foreign secretary, who at that time was a lady called Claire Short, when Zimbabweans came to her and said, look, we've just made an agreement, or not just, a few years ago, we made an agreement with the Conservatives. And bear in mind, it doesn't matter who's in power. If a country makes an agreement with another country, the new parliament that moves in needs to honor that agreement. Otherwise, what do we have? We have total chaos. So they made an agreement that they were gonna hand back the land, you know, and it being signed off. Okay, I think it was called the Lancaster Agreement or Lancaster House Agreement. But New Labour came to force. This is Tony Blair's Labour. Claire Short came into power, and she basically said to Mugabe, middle finger. She basically gave Mugabe the middle finger. I said, we're not going to give you back your land. Okay, whatever agreement you made right with the last party. We're a new party. We don't have to honor anything. In fact, we don't even need to listen to you. We don't need to talk to you. Get lost. And that's what started the land reforms. Okay, that's what started. And it's really important that we understand and we have that backstory, that the land reforms in Zimbabwe, the effort of the African people to take back their land from the settlers, who essentially, whatever's happening in South Africa now, it was much worse in Zimbabwe. I believe the rate was 98% of arable land was in the hand of the white Zimbabwean population. And they made up, I think, if I remember correctly, something along the lines of 2 or 3% of the population. A tiny, minuscule amount of the population. And they owned basically everything. Everything. And when the African governments came, you know, and said rightly, very rightly, you're going to have to give this land back. You can't keep it. We can't maintain this situation. They turned around and said no. And I would add this. The land reforms in Zimbabwe get such bad press, but actually that was one of the most peaceful land transitions that has happened in history. Barely any white, you know, they talk about, oh, this, that, the other, oh, why are you chasing them out? Because they're white. Do you know how many white people they killed? I think it was less than a dozen. Now, if you factor in the size, this is an entire nation, and they're taking back the land for, you know, for thousands of miles, you know, thousands of square miles worth of land being reclaimed. And they did it in a way that spared as much white life as possible. Had this been the other way around, there would have been a massacre. There would have been a genocide. They would have slayed. Don't believe me, ask the Moors. Okay? Ask the Moors. If this had been the other way around, do you know the bloodshed that there would have been? But there was almost zero bloodshed. That's as peaceful as you can get land transition of the black native population taking their land back. And I know everybody has got their thing to say about Mugabe this, Mugabe that. Well, I agree with what Mugabe did, but I don't agree with the process in which he undertook it. That's what everybody says, yeah? And then when you ask them, okay, so what process would you have taken? Oh, well, there's no other process, okay? There's no other process. He took the only process that could have been taken. So I know I'm rambling, but I'm giving you that backstory. A lot of you would have known that already. But I'm giving you that backstory to say that he's trying to equate Zimbabwe trading with China, okay? Trading, that means China's coming with money and buying resources, okay? Buying goods, making partnerships with the West, who came with guns, stole land, settled, and made the people essentially slaves and servants within their own land. They're not even comparable. The fact that what Tucker Carlson is doing here is doing exactly what his media organization, he used to work for Fox, I'm not sure if he still does, exactly what they've been doing. This is where his knowledge base lies. His knowledge base lies in the framework of stupidity, which is Fox News, which is framed, oh, well, China is the new neo-imperialist. But when you ask, in fact, next time people come with that neo-imperialist talk and they ask and they say to you, well, China's doing exactly what we did. Ask them, where has China invaded in Africa? Name one country that China's militarily invaded. Name one time that China has shown military aggression towards an African nation. Name one African leader that China have deposed. Name one African leader that China have assassinated. Ask them to do anything that we would associate with actual real imperialism, and what you'll find is you get crickets. Oh, that's the wrong sound. That's what you get. Yeah? Ask them that. Ask them the question about any of their actual imperialistic behavior, and you'll see that it's not repeated in China. It's just the soundbite. And the sad thing is you even get Africans kind of like parroting this, oh, yeah, no, the China's the new West. It's like what you're talking makes no sense. Because the one thing that we can do with China that we could never do with the West is say no. Okay, every African nation can turn around to China when China comes along and go, nah, that deal doesn't work for us. Oh, we want to buy this amount of uranium from you, or we want to buy this amount of gold or diamonds. Nah, that doesn't work for us. Sorry, we'll hold on to it. Do you think we ever had the option of saying no to any of those Western powers? They're like, you will give it to us for this price, and we're lucky if there was a price at the end of it. So that's the big difference. Let me let this play.
Well, my view is that initially, as we became independent, we had most of our development thrust was from the West. But as we evolved, we have also benefited from investment and cooperation from countries like China.
But what are,
and you see, that was the nicest way he could have phrased his response there. Yeah, he essentially said initially, yeah, we had development from the West. And notice he never said investment. It was development. The West had developed a nation in Zimbabwe that they could profit from. They had all of the land and they put the infrastructure out there that benefited them. And initially, Zimbabweans benefited from some of that infrastructure that was left. But what that nation needs to do to move forward is continue that development, which they can only do with ongoing trade. And what they want to do is they want to trade with someone who sees them as a partner or as a trading partner, and not trade with someone who sees them as a slave, which is essentially how the West views them. Okay, that's as nice an answer as he could give without spelling out Africa's history. And here's the thing, Tucker Carlson, the moron, needs Africa's history spelled out because he clearly doesn't know it. Clearly has no idea what Africa's history is. Or I say Africa, any of the nations that are in front of him. I'll be surprised if he knows anything about any of their backstories.
I mean, the basic structure seems the same. Foreign powers extract.
I'm just going to put this comment on the screen because this is actually a really good point. Okay, what all black people need to remember is that Zimbabwe has a 2,000-year trade relationship with China. Zimbabwe has been trading with China since the Ming and Tang dynasties, by the way. And that goes for a lot of Africa. One of the things that people don't realize is that Africa's history didn't begin at the close or at their independence, essentially. Africa's history was interrupted for a period of a couple of 100 years by European excursion. It was interrupted. Okay, it wasn't like there is a all African nations have very rich history prior to the incursion of the Europeans. I'm not going to say contact with the Europeans, by the way, because I believe contact with the Europeans goes back hundreds of years. I don't believe it starts at a certain point. I believe it gets belligerent at a certain point and the actual power dynamics shift at a certain point. That's what the history tells me. But it doesn't just randomly start at a certain point. What happens is they start introgression into the African continent at a certain point, and that changes the power dynamic. There's a huge shift, which is there's too much kind of like detail to go into, but it's important to note that point. Africa's history was interrupted. Yeah, Africa's development has been interrupted badly by this European imperialist experiment that has been taking place for the last few hundred years. Okay, last 200 to 300 years. Africa's history and Africa's story has been interrupted, but it's not one that will not recover. Okay, it's recovered before and it will recover again. That's what a lot of people, we have a very presentist view when it comes to our outlook on life, and sometimes we think that how things are is how things have always been, but how things are at the moment is very far from where they have been historically. So that was a really good point that you made there, Wealthy. Let's carry on.
Mineral wealth from various African countries, but do you think
I'm just bringing that back? So.
Mineral wealth structure seems the same. Foreign powers extract.
I'm going back.
But I mean, the basic structure seems the same. Foreign powers extract mineral wealth from various African countries. But do you think that the arrangement that Zimbabwe and other countries currently have with China is better or worse for Zimbabwe than it was under, say, the Brits?
Once again, that was strong projectionism there. Did you see that? Okay, it seems the same. The basic layout of it seems the same. What happens is, foreign power comes in, Africa extracts the mineral wealth. But do you think that the freaking temerity of this guy, just I'm sorry, these people, I just find them so freaking frustrating. Yeah. First of all, you've euphemized the nature of the relationship. Okay. And it's not all a case of extraction of mineral wealth. There are deals that go beyond just simply the extraction of mineral wealth, trade deals that take place. Secondly, your extraction of mineral wealth, didn't involve trade. It didn't involve a trade-off, okay? It didn't involve the exchange or mercantile nature that's seen in every other trade that's seen throughout history. What we saw is European belligerence, in this case in Zimbabwe, British belligerence, where they just destroyed and extracted, by the way, deconstructed what was there, extracted what they needed, and gave back nothing. This is why white supremacy, this is the roots of white supremacy, and why white males like Tucker Carlson are so allergic to competition. They're so allergic to the concept of having to compete, because historically, ancestrally, their ancestors have simply landed, militarily dominated, and taken. That's what they do. This entire concept of giving Africa or giving anybody back something for something you take from them when you're stronger than them, is their mind is like, well, why would I pay you for something when I'm stronger than you? My guns are bigger than yours. I will just take it. We see it with Venezuela the other day. Okay, this is how their mind works. Their mind doesn't work like the old world. Their mind doesn't work like functioning civilizations that have operated for thousands of years before these Western Europeans began expanding with their bloodlust and their guns. Prior to that, people were used to trade, this idea of arriving with something in exchange for something. And this is something that the European hasn't done for the past 300 to 400 years. They haven't given anything for the things they've taken. They've extracted from every part of the world and given nothing in return. They've taken life, they've taken land, they've taken resources and given nothing in return. That's what they do. And this is why he's framing the question in this way. He has to frame the question in this way because this is the way his mind works.
I think the premises upon which you construct your question, I don't think is perfect.
Not surprised.
Yes, Zimbabwe is a sovereign state.
Yes.
You understand? And we move.
Not perfect is a is the kindest way he could have put it. Let me bring that back a few minutes.
Perfect.
Not surprised.
Yes, Zimbabwe is a sovereign state.
Yes.
You understand? And we move on the basis that give us the best results of our resources. Whether it is relation with the West or the East, what is primarily important is what we ourselves as Zimbabweans are satisfied with. We don't need to please the West or please the East. We please ourselves.
Good.
Look at talking. He's just sitting there like a moron. So that's the kindest way he could have phrased the answer. Okay. He said essentially, Zimbabwe is a sovereign state. Okay. We will essentially take the deal that is best for us. We don't need to please the West or please the East. And we're not doing business for your pleasure. We're doing business that makes the most sense. The West are desperate, by the way, for a war with the East. But as time is expanding, their appetite for war with the East is getting less and less. They wanted an excuse. They've been dying for an excuse to invade China. But as time is progressing, they're realizing that China's doors are becoming more and more closed, especially on the military side. They're not sure what China's capabilities are. That hunger has lessened. But what you'll find is that their aggression towards closing off mutual trading regions, and that's what's taking place at the moment. These places of trade in Africa that have become mutual trading regions, the West's new strategy has been to militarily close them off. Okay, this is what we saw in Libya, okay, where a lot of Libya's wealth had been grown from expanding its trading partners across the world. Okay, had a lot of trade from Russia and from China. So the West invaded and closed those doors. Okay, now it's very difficult for outside traders who aren't from the West to do trade in that area. And we're seeing this pattern play out. They're seeing what happened in the AES states, and it's absolutely terrifying to them. So they're trying to do this thing where they're using the trading nation as the proxy for their war, because they don't want to do a direct attack on the East, because they know that that's probably not going to end well. Yeah, that's a world war that I don't think they want to open doors to, because beneath all of this, bravado, they are cowards, by the way. They only want to end a war that they're guaranteed to win. Okay. And by the way, let me also put this one out there for you guys as well. Yeah. Every war that the US has lost in the past century, they've wanted to lose. Yeah, to be very clear about that. So I know some of you straight away are going to start thinking about the lines along the lines, oh, well, Vietnam, no. They weren't supposed to win that war. They didn't even want to win that war. That war wasn't even needed. That war was about something else. That war was about getting rid of a domestic threat, which it did very, very successfully, by the way.
That seems like a good model for every sovereign country. President Bio, thank you for this. Do you think that there is a substantial difference? I'm just trying to understand from a Western perspective how the East does business in Africa versus how the West does. And it may be too sensitive a topic really even to talk about out loud, but to the extent you have a view you can share, would you? He
just asked that question with a straight face. Do you think there's a substantial difference between the way the West and the East do business?
Is it too sensitive a question? Is it too sensitive a question to ask you? Is there a substantial difference between the way the West and the way the East?
Of course, there's a freaking difference, you flipping moron. Yeah, it's called the Berlin Conference, you dildo. How is this guy, like, seriously? There's no comparison. And once again, I don't fully blame him. It's not like I'm sitting here thinking, because actually he's a really good conduit of what is Western intelligence when it comes to anything outside of Europe and America. This is their framing. This is how they've been conditioned by their media. Their media tells them this is true, that is true, this is true. And they hear it so often, they start to think that these things are reality. He thinks it's a reality that people in Africa are sitting down going, oh my God, I don't know who I should trade with. Should I trade with China or should I trade with the US? Like, listen, man, there's no comparison. Yeah, there's no comparison. One comes with funds and the other comes with guns. Okay, one comes with an agenda and a long drawn out plan of control of your government, and the other says, how much is that? Okay, fine. Just, I mean, put yourself in the mindset. One, but you're selling a car. I'm selling a car at the moment, so that's why it's the first thing that came to mind. You're selling a car. One person comes with the asking price for your car. The other person comes and says, I can't give you the full amount for your car. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 10% of the price that you've asked for. Also, I'm gonna need you to divorce your wife, okay? And you're going to have to marry this woman instead. On top of that, I'm going to take your kids into bondage, all right? And what you're gonna do is you're going to build more cars for me whilst I pay for them. This is the kind of comparison that he's asking. It's not even close. Do you understand? It's not even close. There's no Africa has been forced to deal a certain way with the West. Okay, it's not like it's never been a case of Africa, you know, willfully saying yes, we're going to do this. No one puts themselves into bondage, because the West has basically said you're going to do this or we're going to kill you all. Yeah, that's always what the West still is. Do this or die. That's always the other option. Do this or die. Do this or be invaded. And by the way, I speak this as a Nigerian, which happens to be the nation that's had more presidents die in office than any other nation on the planet. That is not a coincidence. Okay. And all of our presidents seem to die just about the time when they talk about building refineries in Nigeria. Okay, so this is the kind of belligerence that we're used to seeing from the West, and the kind of stupidity of the framing of a question like this.
I'm sure relations cannot be measured country by country.
Yes.
Relations depend on the historical background of countries between one country and another.
Yes.
That's the basis on which relations grow.
Yes.
And are nurtured. For us in Zimbabwe, yes, we are a former British colony, but we are very happy with the relations that have now developed with, say, countries like China and so on.
Yes.
Despite being a former British colony.
I think this.
It's a simple answer. Yeah, it's a very, very simple answer that he's given there. Yes, we used to be a British colony. And he's saying that deliberately because Tucker's asked the question, obviously not knowing the difference between a colony and a trading partner. Tucker keeps trying to frame the question as though a new trading partner has come along. Okay, and Britain was never a trading partner with Zimbabwe. The relationship between Britain and Zimbabwe has been one of aggressive, colonizing, imperial, overlord, war, genocidal maniac, okay, and victim, versus the relationship with China, which has always historically been merchant to merchant. Do you see the difference there? Yeah, it shouldn't be that hard for anybody to understand. And I agree with Joy's statement there. It's like I said this at the start, why on earth is Tucker Carlson on stage here? Respectfully, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, but I do, no American should be on stage here, respectfully. Because what you'll find is the political literacy of most American journalists, I'm speaking about journalists here, by the way, when it comes to outside of America, is so dirt poor because of the strength of the media machine that is in America and because of the propaganda. They have no idea. It's like that's why Americans were the most emotional when they saw their iShow Speed Tour, etc., because they haven't seen these images and these pictures before, because of how densely packed their media is with propaganda. Whereas to most people who don't dwell within that nation, it wasn't a shock. There was no shock there. Okay, there was no, oh, okay, you know, there was no shock. All right, we'd seen it all before. And this is why, you know, having, you know, stick respectfully, Tucker Carlson, stick to demos versus cons. Okay, that's the limit of your knowledge. You having a discussion with African leaders is actually an insult to yourself. Okay, the three of them, you can see by their bodily posture, they are sitting there, and I don't think they respect Tucker Carlson. Their body language says, how the hell did this moron get this gig? At least that's what I'm reading. You tell me if you're reading something different.
Well, maybe one of these topics is too difficult to talk about in public, so let me just ask you, President Bio, about one of the strengths of your country and the continent, which is its birth rate, which so far surpasses that of any other region in the world, and that seems like a strength. How has your country, Sierra Leone, but also many other countries in Africa, been able to maintain a birth rate at replacement when Europe, the US, Canada, lots of other parts of the world have not been able to?
I swear to God, I don't know how to respond to this question. He just asked. He just asked the. Sorry, let me catch myself. He's just asked the president of Sierra Leone,
how is it you've managed to sustain the birth rate of growth?
First of all, the world's population has successfully grown, successfully been growing for the past 200,000 years. One direction, okay? One direction. The world's population has been going in one direction for the past 200,000 years, That is up, okay? It's always been growing. So the first answer to your question, even when I was young, the world's population estimate, by the way, it's always an estimate, was 6 billion, and now lies at about 8.5 billion. That is a what, 30% increase? 30 to 40% increase in real numbers in the world's population since I was a child. So the first answer to your question, Tucker the moron, Carlson, is do nothing. Okay, that's the first thing. It doesn't require political outsider input or even a working cerebral cortex to. You don't even need a functioning cerebral cortex to make your population grow. That's not an achievement. Okay, your population growing is not an achievement. The only reason people like to talk about, I don't get this whole thing, like with China's population shrinking was by design. Okay, it wasn't they weren't faced with a birth crisis. There was actually a period of time when children were so unwanted, girls were so unwanted. Sometimes you'd see them, like, I'm not going to talk about some of the things you'd see in China. There's a massive push to lower the birth rates in the Far East, particularly in China, where they got a massive population, obviously. And the government pushed it and incentivized it. Okay, so it was kind of very much taboo and frowned upon to have loads and loads of kids, among other things. That is by design. It's not some biological mishap or this, that, and the other. They understood in that part of the world, population too large, we need to get the numbers down. And they executed strategy to make that happen. And that probably goes, by the way, hand in hand with one of the reasons why they do well academically, because essentially households are small. So it's probably much easier for both parents to give attention to the 1 or 2 children that they have. But that's a side note. Okay. So the first answer to your question, your very astute question, Tucker, is that it doesn't take outsider intervention. Secondly, did you think that it was some kind of, he's going to give you an answer where some kind of what we did in the government, first of all, we spiked the water with hormones so that when they make love, what's wrong with this idiot? This quite possibly is the most stupid question I have ever heard asked. And I felt like I don't know, maybe they felt like they were being pranked at this point. Like, what are you talking about? The only people who are struggling, yeah? The only people who are struggling to make their numbers count, yeah, happen to be the people who clearly must be cursed by God for all of the genocides they've committed, because there's no other populations that are having growth problems. It's either those who are under the thumb, yeah, of your oppression. And we're going to talk about all the things that are on different street corners in the US to stop certain populations from growing. Yeah, I'm not going to go into that, but if you know what I'm talking about. The things that are encouraged in those societies, the child care payments that have to be made, to pay, all of these things are to stunt growth in certain populations. Yes, we know that has an effect, but outside of the hellhole dystopian experiment that is America, no population has a problem keeping its growth. I don't understand. Well, maybe here's the answer. Maybe what Tucker needs to do is get on the blower to his best mate Nick Fuentes, who thinks girls are disgusting and who thinks sex is gay. Sex with women is gay. Maybe he needs to get on the phone to him and tell him to find himself a wife and to start reproducing, because all I'm seeing is the lauding and the veneration of single angry white men who hate women. And I think that might be the reason why your population is struggling to grow, because all of your men want to do nothing more than dominate women, the same way your race wants to dominate everyone who's not your race. This might be a part of the problem, but anyway, let's go.
Thank you very much. I think we are hard workers, and we work both in the day and at night. And
that is such great advice.
It is essential to have young people and to keep the birth rate at the right level so that.
Did he did anyone vet Tucker's questions? I just want to know that. That's really important to know, isn't it? I mean, I feel like this question's been given more respect than it was due, to be honest with you. But there you go.
There is sustainability in development. What we do today, or as leaders, we provide the enabling environment, provide them with the tools, the young people to navigate the world, which is extremely tough, complicated, and evolving and changing all the time. So it is our responsibility to bear that in mind. We have to plan ahead, be ahead of the curve to be able to replace accordingly so that we don't have a gap in our development process. So we have been busy producing as much as we can, a lot of good people, and we are investing in their education so that they are fit for purpose for a world that is becoming digital and, of course, going extremely to the edge of technological advancement.
If I could just ask you a quick...
I feel like that question got way too much respect. I'm sorry. I just feel like it didn't require... it didn't require a serious answer. It's a stupid question. The answer is absolutely nothing. Okay, the less government intervention there is, and the less, you know, yeah, the less government intervention there is, essentially, the faster a population is likely to grow. That's probably the recipe there. Anyway, let's carry on.
A follow-up to you, Mr. President. Do you keep track precisely of how many of your young, educated citizens leave and how many stay? Are you thinking hard about how to retain the smartest, most energetic people?
That was the first decent question. Wait. No, that's not it. I'm looking for my applause button. I think it's here. No. Okay, he'll just get a gay for now. I can't find it. I swear to you, it was there somewhere. wait, it was on page 1. I swear, it must be here. No, it's gone. Okay, yeah. Look, side note. That was his first decent question, so I want to give him a round of applause. Okay, first decent question during this conference that he's just given there. How do you retain the intelligent? Because this actually is an issue. Okay, this actually is an issue in Africa, which is retaining the best people. And that's not, once again, by accident. It's not that the best and the brightest don't want to stay. It's that the foreign intervention to extract is called, historically, it's called Africa's brain drain. Okay, where essentially, whenever, you know, I had lots of horror stories actually of inventions that were made in Africa, things like sustainable energy, X, Y, and Z, and then the people who invented them basically getting extracted to go to America and then disappearing. And this happening on more than one occasion, where people, you know, brilliant minds would just disappear from Africa after inventing some things. I wish I was in more of a power or more of a pace of power to have done something, because this is going back a few decades, you know. But it's really, really something to note, the brain drain and the deliberate extraction of people who essentially create life-changing and demography changing inventions suddenly disappearing. It's very, yeah, it's just something we need to keep an eye on in this age. 2026 is definitely something that we need to make sure doesn't continue to happen. But well done, Tucker. Good question.
Definitely. In fact, what my administration did was to make sure that we provide basic primary and secondary education free of charge to the citizens. Every child born in Sierra Leone can go to school and finish high school without paying a penny. We don't just provide tuition, we also make sure that we provide other essentials to make it possible so that nobody has excuse not to go to school, because in the 21st century, without education, definitely you can make it. And we do not just want to make it at the personal level, family level. We want to grow as a nation. We want to be useful citizens of West Africa, the community that I chair today. But we also want to be a useful citizens, global useful citizens that can contribute to the world. So we are taking stock of that, and we are educating them, equipping them. In fact, I call education as an equipment, a navigation equipment in a world that is becoming very, very complicated and complex.
Obviously, it's good to have the universal education system that you don't need to pay for. I was interested in that he said it only goes up to high school, which I probably should have done some DD on this, but I didn't have the background on this. So paper, perhaps people could tell me, is university free in Sierra Leone? I hope it is. I hope it is. I hope it doesn't just stop at high school, because that would be a shame. If it isn't, I think there's some building to do, because you can't be, you know, in a developing nation like Sierra Leone, you can't be enforcing debt for people to access further education. It doesn't, yeah, at least, you know, for them to be getting into debt for undergraduate studies is and would be a major, major concern in my view. So I'd be interested to know what the story is there. Sorry, 1 second. I just need to hide this on the screen. Yeah. So yeah, I'd be interested to know what the story is there. But really, yeah, I've lost my trail of thought, so I'm going to carry on.
Thank you. President Boko, as you look at young people in Botswana who are...
Here's the point I was going to make. Sorry, very, very quickly. I've just finished a documentary about IQ scores in Africa. And disturbingly enough, obviously, the documentary pulls no punches in revealing the fact that a lot of it is a load of nonsense. Most of the scores are made up. But even with the scores being made up, on top of that, Africa's socio-economic position would be its biggest contributor to having lower average scores, if that were indeed the case, which we don't know because they haven't had the scores recorded correctly. But even if that were the case and they were lower, it would be explained quite easily socio-economically, because there's a socio-economic correlation with IQ scores, which is undeniable. It's undeniable. You know, people who are raised in worse socio-economic conditions just won't be able to achieve as highly as those who are raised in better. And by the way, if you want to watch the video, it explains it fully. The reason I raised that is because the average IQ score of Sierra Leone, according to the racist studies that are being promoted online, is 47. Now, 47 is essentially a functioning R word. You know, that's like that's not even someone who's functioning. That's like way below functioning capability. That's basically like almost like strongly autistic. And they're claiming that that's the average IQ in Sierra Leone, which I find it's not just insulting, it's rude, and it's just typically Western to actually publish that. But then also, if anybody believes that that score is correct and that score is true, then you're likely the person who's a functioning R word. You're likely very strongly to the left of the spectrum if you believe that there's any nation that could sustain a population with an average IQ score that low. So it's just, this is the levels of stupidity that we have to deal with. And this is what, you know, remember, Tucker Carlson's going to be coming into this discussion with all of that baggage. Yeah. With all of that baggage, with all of that kind of like that thought behind what these people in front of him are capable of, because of all of the propaganda that his barely functioning mind has received. So he's got to be coming into this discussion with all of that nonsense. The fact that we, even as Africans, have to debunk this stupidity tells you everything that you need to know. You're up against the machine of people who, regardless of what takes place, have decided they do not want to view you as human and will find a way of justifying that. They'll find a way of justifying it. That's the bottom line, you know? It's just ridiculous. And Rainey, you are exactly correct with your statement.
Are educated and energetic. What's your pitch to them? What's your argument to them to stay in Botswana, not go to South Africa, Europe, the United States?
Young people are generally innovative. They are entrepreneurial. They now have become digital natives, and that presents immense opportunities to them. These opportunities mean they can pretty much operate wherever they are, and they must, as a matter of course, remain within Botswana so that they can then spread their reach and influence to every part from Botswana. And so the opportunities that there are in Botswana, the training, the education, the acquisition of skills, the support, the environment that nurtures them and feeds and fuels their verve and vitality is what Botswana offers and what will power Africa. Africa generally is a very young continent with a median age of 19.3. Botswana's median age is 25. And so with such a population, Africa is poised.
I'm not sure how much I buy into those median ages, by the way. I'm not sure how much those censuses are to be trusted. And this is coming from someone, you know, obviously Nigeria is supposed to have a really young median age, but then it doesn't feel younger than any other nation when I go to it. In terms of the people that you interact with, you see plenty of people from all age spectrums, and it doesn't feel like it's like heavily weighted towards this youth end as it's being reported. So I think a lot of this is tied together with fuzzy census material that is very, very debatable. That's my point. I think a lot of it is very, very debatable. I'm going to give a shout out to Rainey because I was just thinking this. Thank you for the 14 rand. I appreciate you. Rainey says that guy's barber's on point. He came ready for the conference, and he's got the enhancer. Look at that line. Shoo. That is a lineup and a half, man. That is he came ready for the conference. Respect, shout out the Botswanese president came prepared. Indeed. Thank you very much for the donation. But I also like the point that he made regarding digital natives, which I think is one of the big things that this is an opportunity time, or opportune time, I should say, for Africa. In that in Africa, we're dealing with the continent that has, in my view, the best combination of natural environment, weather, agriculture, produce, people. The people in Africa are wonderful. All of these things. Back in the day, the only thing that was holding people back from Africa was the fact that it didn't have the infrastructure, it didn't have the jobs. There was no possibility. If you're taking yourself out to Africa, you're isolating yourself from the rest of the world. However, now we are in a stage where digital natives are a real thing. Okay, digital natives are a real thing. You know, you can operate a job fully from any nation. Africa is where it's at, in my view. Everything in my life right now is geared towards me escaping to Africa within the next few months to years. It's very much my short to medium term plan to relocate there and never return. Because why would I be anywhere else? So this is an opportune time. I do think that like nations like Singapore, which weren't on anyone's radar, made themselves very, very attractive by understanding very early this idea or this concept of people working remotely or setting themselves up. So they made their nation very attractive through their different kind of like laws around taxation and kind of grants for digital nomads, etc., etc. But they built themselves up to a place where it made sense if you were like a fintech founder to found your company in Singapore. And I feel like Africa needs to jump on that wave. I really do feel like that, you know?
To rule the world.
So what?
Oh, that was gangster. Let me go and bring that back. I'm going to bring that back. Let's hear that full statement that built up to rule the world.
19.3, Botswana's median age is 25. And so with such a population, Africa is poised to rule the world.
Terrifying. Terrifying. You know what? Wait. That's what I needed. That's terrifying. Do you realize how terrifying that statement was? And look, I like his posture as well. This guy's got a very pharaonic, a very pharaonic kind of like, look. You know, I look at him and it's like, this guy has definitely got a very pharaonic countenance on him. But that statement he's just made there was pin drop. Yeah, pin drop. It's terrifying. It's that kind of understanding, Africa understanding its position in the world. And I love hearing African leaders speak like this. Okay, I love hearing African leaders speak like this because they understand. And it's important that we also understand that Africa being held in the position that it's in is the most unnatural thing. People don't realize it's literally the most unnatural thing. When people make the comparison between, for instance, India and Africa, and India was colonized too, why can't they? China was colonized too, why can't they? Blah blah blah. The reason why is because there has been a very purposeful and deliberate heavy hand of suppression, much like what takes place. This is one of the reasons why I resonate so much with Black Americans, because I realize that their experience is a microcosm of the global African experience. Everything that happens or is happening or we allow to happen in Black America will play itself out across the rest of the world. Okay, it's a microcosm of white supremacy, right? We defeat white supremacy in America, we defeat white supremacy globally. It's one of those things that I've always believed. So what a lot of people don't realize is that the unnatural position that Africans find themselves in being the most mineral rich, most resource rich, most population rich, and by the way, we are the most population rich. Forget the censuses. Africa's population is more than China. I tell you that right now. Being the most resource, mineral, population rich continent on the country, in the world, continent on the country, continent in the world, and being held back in the position that it's currently in is entirely unnatural. It requires constant belligerence. Just like Black Americans require constant aggression and belligerence. Otherwise, they would be running America. They would naturally default to a position of leadership. It just would happen. Look how much influence they have with the tiny amount of, comparative population that they have. And anytime they're not held back, they dominate in sports, they dominate in the arts, they dominate in music, they dominate in oratory. They've had one president who had a little bit of Black in him, and it wasn't even Black American, it was frigging Kenyan, and it was the best orator that American history has ever seen. Okay, and people talk about him to this very day. No one ever talks about frigging Bush in that glowing way, or any other, or Clinton, but everyone keeps talking about this one. Remember when that Black guy was president? It was peak. Remember him. Yeah, because this is what happens. Imagine if they actually elected a Black American, like a Black American president, like someone with the actual blood of the Black Americans. Imagine that. It will be on top. They know for a fact they would default to rule very quickly. Africa's default position is to rule. Yeah, that's why that statement he just made is terrifying. Africa's default position is to rule. If Africans weren't artificially held down, like Zimbabwe is a perfect example, they committed the land reforms and they've been under sanctions ever since. The most aggressive global sanctions this world's ever seen, making it impossible for them, for their economy to grow, because they've been under sanctions. And a lot of people don't understand what sanctions are. Sanctions make it illegal for you to trade with a nation. And not only you, but people that you trade with. So if there's someone you trade with who comes out over time was trading with Zimbabwe, you risk to be prosecuted. So people don't realize how deep sanctions are. Yeah, sanctions are terrifying. People don't want to go anywhere near a sanctioned state with anyone. So this is the thing. It makes it so that everyone's terrified to do any kind of trade that has you on their books. Do you understand that? So this is the kind of belligerent force that African nations have been under. This is why they kidnapped an elected president in Patrice Lumumba and executed him live on television for the world to see. Okay, this is why they got rid of Toure. This is why they got rid of Nkrumah. This is why they got rid of Sankara. This is why they went around Africa getting rid of all of the revolutionary leaders, because the position Africa finds itself in right now is unnatural and is not sustainable. The things that I think I need to put out there that we must be aware of is, first of all, that devil Bill Gates and his fixation with injecting the African people. I know they've probably got a load of pro jabbers on this live stream right now who are going to be like, oh, don't start that conspiracy theory. I want them gone. Honestly, I want all of that Western medicine that gets put inside our children gone. We don't need any of it. I guarantee you that is not only affecting the cognitive abilities of the children, it's affecting their health, and it's affecting their sterilization, well, affecting their how fertile, their fertility. And we have to get rid of all of it. Yeah, we have to get rid of all of it. We don't need any of it in Africa. We need to get rid of those devils who are essentially, you know, having their way with African healthcare. That's what we need to do. We need to put this all the way back. There needs to be a huge reset. But anyway, I've gone south, or at least been diverted. Shout out to President of Botswana here for hitting them with that gem.
So, what are your plans for the world once you rule it?
To make it fairer, to make it more equitable, to ensure that intellectual property is internalized in every part of the African continent, that innovation serves humanity, not just a predatory elite, and that everybody can partake equitably and benefit from the fruits of the economy and the vast opportunities that are available in the world.
Oh, keep it. That's it. I need that one. That's the one. Yeah, I was looking for that one earlier. That was a hell of a speech. All right. And the first point that he made about make it fairer and more equitable. This is something that Africa has, in fact, I'm not even just going to say Africa. This is something that the world, minus the modern European, the Western European, who is a belligerent dog and who knows nothing other than treachery, lies, and going back on the word that they've put out. That's just historically, by the way. This is not me being kind of like, oh, you're being rude. No, I'm not. I like, you know, I've got I got loads of white friends. That's not what I now. No, but this is for real. Okay. If you look historically, I always say one of the things that white supremacists find most offensive. There's two things that white supremacists find offensive. One, their words. Two, their history. That's it. If you want to offend the white supremacists, just tell them, hey, you used to do this, by the way. Do you remember in 19 blah, 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 where you guys did this? Oh my God, how dare you tell us what we did? Or quote them, you know, that's like you do with Charlie Kirk. You just quote Charlie Kirk. Okay, the most offensive thing you can do is quote him. Oh yeah, do you mean like when Charlie Kirk was a good guy? Do you mean like when he said that all these? Oh my God, how dare you quote him? You're taking him out of context. He never said that all black people were dumb. He just said the pilots were dumb. It's like this is what they do. But if you look historically, yeah, going off on my side tangent. If you look historically, the truth of the matter is, besides the Western European, the entirety of the rest of the world has this viewpoint of equitability. Okay, we can see it in everywhere. We can see it in every place that the imperialists and the colonists landed. Okay, be it South America, North America, the natives of Australia, the natives of Africa, wherever, Asia, wherever they went, they received the same greeting. They received the same level of respect. They received a population who was like, yeah, come. What have you got? Oh, yeah, come. It's all right. No, we don't need anything from you. Only what? Talking about land? They'll just take here. This is free. Settle your people. Feel good. Blah, 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 blah. The Caribs, yeah, exactly. Everything else, yeah, that other people are saying. Everywhere they went, they received exactly the same treatment. And they realized something. Something clicked. They realized something. They're like, have you noticed something? Wherever we go, people are nice. So if we return their niceness with evil, we could take what they've got. And they just chose that. That just became their default. They can't understand a world where people have the ability, have the resource, have the population, have everything to rule the world and to not take everything else from everyone else. They don't understand that world. That world doesn't make any sense to them. That is the default position and the default behavior of a white supremacist. The default behavior of a white supremacist is not, we want to just be surrounded by ourselves and not have anyone around us, because for the most part, they already have that. Their default position is, we want to be by ourselves, but we also want everything that you've got, and we also don't want to have to work for anything that we get. We want you guys doing all the work for us, and we want to have all the benefit. That is the default position of a white supremacist. And this is why his words here to us is not terrifying. It's kind of like, yeah, cool. This is great. Yeah. You know, round of applause. Let's let Africa rule the world. Yeah, that'll be good, man. It'll be equity. To listen to all these white supremacists, all they can hear is, this guy wants to murder us all. They're gonna genocide the entire white population when they get the chance. That's all they can hear, because that is a projection of their own behavior. You understand? Their own behavior is that. And this is why they have been artificially holding down Africa, holding down native Black Americans, holding down Caribbeans, holding down Black people wherever they are with the most aggressive and barbaric forms. However they can do it, they will do it, because they are terrified of what the outcome might be.
Well, I look forward to being treated fairly under your rule. Thank you. President,
did you hear that statement there as well? Exactly what I just said. I look forward to being treated fairly under your rule. We never said anything about ruling you. Okay. Yeah, but this is that they can't help it.
Nagawa, I wonder what lessons you've been in the government of Zimbabwe for decades in various roles, including through a very turbulent period.
Look at that, get a little bit of mustache sweat that's beating up there. Sorry.
Well, I look forward to being treated fairly under your rule. Thank you. President Nagawa, I wonder what lessons you've been in the government of Zimbabwe for decades in various roles, including through a very turbulent period where your predecessor famously kicked out the whites, and then the economy tanked, and now it's rising again. I wonder if...
Did you hear that summation of the land reforms? See, I'm very glad that I spent all that time at the start of the stream explaining what led up to the land reforms and the complexities and the treachery of the British government, and also highlighting, which I'm going to highlight once again, the success in terms of the peaceful transition of land from colonist back to native. The very, very peaceful transition, which saw less than a dozen whites lose their life. And they're probably the ones that lost their life were probably the ones who were standing on their farms going, "Oh, kill anybody who comes out here." You know what I mean? Those are probably the only ones. Yeah. Did you see the way you framed it then? Oh, you know, your predecessor, this society is just gonna, you know, kick out all the whites. They always summarize it. It's the same thing they did with Idi Amin. Let's not look at the fact that respectfully, the Indians were destroying the economy, okay? Destroying the Ugandan economy entirely. They were extracting wealth. They were given positions of power, once again, by the imperialists, okay, in all of the major industries. They were destroying the economy. They were exporting all of their wealth, and they were only trading in their own currencies. They were destroying the Ugandan economy, okay? And they were given warnings before Uganda took that position to say, okay, you guys have to go. And once again, that was also done relatively peacefully. Okay, this is what they do. It always becomes, kick out all the whites, kick out all the whites, kick it. That's always becomes their line. Oh, well, it was racial, but it wasn't racial. There was nothing racist about what Zimbabwe did. It wasn't a case of, we are kicking you out because you're white. We're kicking you out because you are imperialists and you are the sons of settlers, the sons and daughters, and this land that you have doesn't belong to you. It's irrespective if you're white. They could have been white, they could have been, some of them could have been black, but if it was a black person who inherited his, you know, if it was some black grandson of Cecil Rhodes who inherited his land illegally, he would have got kicked out as well. This wasn't a racial thing. And this is the thing, they like to, they like to reframe, simplifies, euphemize the realities of our history in a way that makes them the victim. There is no reality in the last 200 to 250 years where the Western European is the victim, apart from the Barbary Corsair slave trade, but that's another discussion. There's no other situation where you're the victim. You can't paint yourself as the victim. I know how much you want to take victim status. It makes you feel cool to say, oh, you're the victim. Oh, yeah, you guys was just mean to us, so we were mean back. It's like, no, but that's not the reality. The reality is we've always treated you nicely, very, very nicely and very, very fairly in comparison to how we should have treated you. What the Zimbabweans should have done to those settlers and what they did were worlds apart. And even then, you still responded in the most belligerent way possible in trying to impoverish an entire nation. You didn't care. When you were putting those sanctions in place, did you care about how many millions of Zimbabweans might fall below the poverty line? Did you care about that? And by the way, that didn't happen, but let's say it did happen. Did you care about that? No, you didn't. All you cared about was getting what you didn't earn in the first place, what you stole in the first place, getting it back or being compensated for it, because that is literally how these people operate.
If you would summarize the lessons that your country has learned from that experience.
What lessons has your country learned, you jackass? Imagine him, the temerity of asking the Zimbabwean president, oh, what lessons have your country, what lessons have you learned? What have you learned about imperialism? Please tell me that. Tucker, can you tell me what America has learned about trying to dominate lands that don't belong to you and what might happen as a result of doing that? Well, clearly you've learned nothing because you kidnapped the Venezuelan president less than a month ago. So clearly you've learned a grand total of zero. There is nothing that you've learned, and you're going to open your rancid mouth to the president of Zimbabwe and tell him, well, what lessons have you learned from, that failed experiment, to get rid of the whites and your racism? What have you learned, you black racist?
I'm not so sure what you have in mind. But let me say,
I like this president. He's had enough of this guy already. He's giving me Mugabe vibes. I like it. I like it. You need to approach stupid questions like that with a strong sense of, I'm just going to mug you off. And this is what I'm getting here. I like it.
Our economy has faced challenges. I'm sure you're aware.
Yes.
Zimbabwe has been under sanctions for decades as a result of us claiming our land.
Okay, not rocket science, not a secret. A journalist should know that. Okay, it's been under consistent sanctions as a result of claiming their land back, which is approaching 30 years ago now. I can't believe that. It makes me feel really old because I remember it like it was yesterday. Approaching 30 years ago now, the Zimbabwean land reforms. And he's going to ask a stupid question about what lessons have you learned
from the British in making ourselves independent?
And by the way, just adding to the fact that it's a handful of British people. Okay, so this is one thing that if you go back through history, Britain, America, Western Europe in general, but Britain and America mainly, they're willing to go to war over an individual. You realize that? They're willing to go to war over an individual, a couple of people. I believe the war with Japan, at least the version they tell us, was started over the murder of a single British aristocrat. So this is the thing. They are the most petty people. They think their lives are so superior. They can murder millions of Africans, but they think their lives are so superior that even if one of theirs is disadvantaged, doesn't even lose their life, but is disadvantaged, that they can place sanctions on an entire nation and try to throw an entire nation into poverty. That's how the way their minds work.
We seized the land and gave it to our people. So sanctions were imposed on us. But in spite of all that constraint we have developed, and we are happy that we have developed on our own, and we feel very independent.
And a lot of people who live in Zimbabwe will tell you this. Is it perfect? No. Would it have been a lot? I mean, if sanctions weren't placed in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe would be flying by now, by the way, to be very, very clear. But even I know a lot of people who do business in Zimbabwe. I know a couple of people who live in Zimbabwe. And I'll tell you, in spite of the sanctions, the position that the country is in terms of its people and in terms of what they have in terms of material wealth is better. It's better than it was, obviously, because you can't get much worse than what it was. And this is the thing, they like to give people this ahistorical view of history. One of the phrases that used to get thrown about is, oh, Zimbabwe is the bread basket of Africa. Oh, it grows the most produce. No. What they didn't tell you is that Zimbabwe exports the most produce. Zimbabwe was a net exporter. Most African nations, by the way, are net exporters of produce. Do you realize that during the whole Live Aid Feed the World thing, Ethiopia was a net exporter of produce? So when Ethiopia was starving, it was actually exporting more produce than it was importing. It was a net exporter. So this whole idea of being the breadbasket of Africa doesn't mean that they were feeding their own people using what was grown on their land. No, those British farmers were exporting everything and taking every dime of profit in their pockets. So just be very, very clear. Talk about, oh, well, this farm used to produce this much and now it only produces 30% of what it used to produce. Okay, that's fantastic. Of that 100% that it used to produce, how much of that came back into the pockets or into the mouths of Zimbabweans? Well, is that right? Well, yeah, because if it now produces 30% and 80% of that 30% goes into the mouths and the pockets of Zimbabweans, that's better than it producing 3 times that amount and none of it coming back to Zimbabweans. This is what people don't want to have, those real conversations. Yeah, anybody can have high producing farms with this and that short-term agricultural methods and all of these pesticides and all that crap, and then export everything and nobody in the country benefits, and then say, oh, well, you're not as productive as you was when I was in the farm. Joke.
Well, some of the land was seized from people who were born there. So I wonder if there's a lesson about targeting people on the basis of their skin color. Do you think?
Can I hear you?
He just said that. Oh, the flipping caucasity of this guy. I'm gonna have to give that a rewind because, oh Lord, we are really here. He actually just said that.
Feel very independent.
And this is the thing. This is where now I know why they got Tucker Carlson. This now makes it make perfect sense, because this, do you realize just a couple of years ago that question would have been so unacceptable? A, because it's ahistorical and everybody knows it makes no sense in the context of Zimbabwe's history, and B, because there was still a level of proprietary and professionalism that a journalist, that a professional, that a politician would bring into a discussion with another politician. You can't, is there a lesson to be learned about the targeting of skin color? You wouldn't ask that question, because anybody with any modicum of knowledge about the Zimbabwean backstory would know that it had nothing to do with skin color and had everything to do with nationality, had everything to do with imperialism. But he's asked that question because look who his president is. Who's Tucker Carlson's president? The most moronic, outspoken, idiotic, politically incorrect moron on the planet, who says stuff like this to the point where Tucker Carlson's question now sounds reasonable. He thought it's reasonable to come to the Zimbabwean president and say, do you think it was a good idea to target people on the basis of skin color? Euphemizing the entire land reform, land appropriation, the entire colonization, the Rhodesian experiment, which saw all Zimbabwean people virtually exiled from their land, taken over by British settlers, sons and daughters of you know, army generals and this, that, and the other, taking all of the good arable land and summarizing the governmental reforms to reappropriate that land back into the hands of the native people, and saying, oh, do you think it's a good idea to target people on the basis of skin color? Because, you know, some of them were born there. So freaking what if they were born there? So freaking what? Like these, it's unbelievable what people get away with these days. It's unbelievable that he asked that question. That, to me, actually, that question deserves a slap. I don't think I could have tolerated it. I think I would have. I might have given him the open palm. That's just honest truth. He might have just got just a quick one across, like just walked over. What did you say? That's what he would have got. He would have got open hand from me, and then I would have answered this question. But yeah, there you go.
Well, some of the land was seized from people who were born there. So I wonder if there's a lesson about targeting people on the basis of their skin color. Do you think? Well, people had their land seized.
See, I mean, the Zimbabwean president actually said, "What did you just say?" Like he had to like double take. Like he's like, "Wait, run that by me again, Tucker. Did you say what I thought?" Like he's like, "What's going on here? What is going on?" Wild. Let's bring it back.
So I wonder if there's a lesson about targeting people on the basis of their skin color. Do you think? Well, people had their land seized in Zimbabwe who were born in Zimbabwe, and they were targeted on the basis of their race. And I wonder if you think that's good or bad.
No. Land did not belong to a race. It belonged to Zimbabweans.
Right. Simple. Okay, mic drop. The land doesn't belong to a race. It belongs to Zimbabweans. Zimbabweans. He's saying the land belonged to Zimbabweans. that look, priceless. He needs to get a rewind there. That look is priceless. He's like, who is this? I know he wanted to slap him there. So shout out, President. Shout out President Nagawa. I know you want to slap him there. I totally empathize. I feel your pain. I feel your pain because trust me, to me personally, you know, there was a time when President Mugabe came to the UK. This is after the land reforms, and there was Peter Tatchell. That was it. Some guy. He was like a gay rights activist, but he tried to like do a citizen's arrest on President Mugabe as President Mugabe was walking through the streets with his bodyguard, and one of President Mugabe's bodyguards just gave him the open palm. And there's a photograph of Peter Tatchell's face with a, I can only describe it as a 1.5 foot palm across his face and all this. That's what I was thinking right now. He's thinking, I will slap that hair right off your head. Like, who are you talking to? Are you mad? Are you actually mad? Like, these people are moving crazy.
Right.
To Zimbabweans. Right. So when the colonialists took land from us, time came when we asserted ourselves, take back our land. And those who wanted to have land at the same basis as the African people of Zimbabwe remained. But those who felt they were superior left.
Okay.
And they don't like that answer. He said those who are willing to enter an equitable deal, okay, a fair deal, remained, okay? But those who decided they were superior left, okay? And that's what they don't want to have a discussion about. They don't want to have a discussion about the fact that they're always trying to paint themselves as victims, but they can almost never be proven to be a victim, because every single time they've been in these situations, Zimbabwe, for instance, we've never been in a position to really enact oppression upon Europeans, upon whites. Okay, it's always just been a case of, well, you're not giving me everything I want for free. I want everything for free and I don't want to. That's all they ever want. All they ever freaking want is everything for nothing. And then when you tell them, no, you're going to have to pay for that. There's a price for that. And actually, no, tell you what, go into the market and compete and we'll select the deal that sounds best to us. That's when they throw their tantrums and act like you're being racist. Do you understand? This is the pathology of these people. You know, it's like I always say with white supremacists, they're scared more than anything of competition. That's all they're scared of. They're scared of the fact they have to compete for the job. Okay, they like the removal of everything that doesn't basically tip the likelihood of them succeeding in their favor. They have to be disproportionately advantaged, and everyone else has to have massive obstacles. That's how they want the world set up. So it's easy for them. Okay, they always say, oh yeah, meritocracy. Oh, in a meritocracy, this will happen. If in a meritocracy, if it was a meritocracy, Tucker Carlson wouldn't be on stage right now. Yeah, in a meritocracy, there's no way on earth this walking dildo would be on stage right now asking these stupid questions. But we don't live in a meritocracy. We live in a world where mediocre white males like this guy get all of the plaudits. They get all of the advantages. They get placed on TV and they get to talk about other people's IQ like they've got good IQ. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Mr. Bio, it does seem like, Mr. President, that the model of government around the world seems to be changing, and people seem to have lost confidence in democracy, at least in the West. People aren't quite as keen to promote democracy. Do you notice this? Do you think democracy is in retreat around the world?
This is another interesting framing of a question, which obviously comes from a place where you have no idea. You have no idea about the history of Africa. You have no idea about it because you know that the meddling in terms of African politics, African presidents, Africa has got dictators. Okay, there's no two ways about it. Every single dictator in Africa has got Western backing. The only people that live short terms, are removed early, or are killed in office tend to be anti-West. It's just a massive coincidence, by the way. It just happens by coincidence. But the people who have long, uninterrupted terms of leadership, like Kagame and Biya, and newly placed, well, I'd say newly placed, now been there nearly 10 years, Ouattara in the Ivory Coast, etc., etc. These people who have long interrupted reigns in Africa are all Western backed. If you're Western backed, you can be a dictator and you'll never be called a dictator. You'll never be called a dictator. Okay, you'll be called. They'll give your nation Rwanda. They'll give it all of the plaudits. Oh yes, Rwanda. This, that, never. Act like it's some great nation. Meanwhile, the president's been in power for God knows how long and committed God knows how many atrocities. But because they are playful and they are in bed with the West, they are never going to be called that. And so he's talking about, oh, well, you know, democracy. You are the stumbling block to democracy in Africa. You, okay? Your nation. You might just be in the first time facing a democracy crisis because you know, put it this way, the people that run your nation secretly are now getting tired of running it secretly, and now that it's being overt with it. And you're for once you feel slightly at a physical threat being a white male, which has never been the case throughout your history. You've always felt relatively safe from the belligerence of your government, but now you're actually facing, you know, your democracy, you know, is facing a bit of a crisis now. Nothing's changed in Africa, my friend. Yeah, there's been no change in Africa, to be clear.
I think the world is in transition.
Yes.
And normally that comes along with instability. I normally refer to it as we are in a state of flux.
Yes.
We have been told to go democratic, and those who are leading the way or who have been teaching us to be democratic are no longer committed to that method of governance. So we are left to choose, but I still believe that democracy is the best method of governance, choosing who leads, especially a liberal democracy with all the freedoms that go with it, so that human rights and the and other liberties are observed and maintained.
To be clear, actually, and this is going to be very controversial, I'm just going to put this out there very quickly. I don't believe in democracy. I don't. I believe in, I actually believe in monarchy, and I have a reason for this. And there's a reason why the UK has a monarchy. And essentially the UK's monarchy is basically America's monarchy as well. So you might as well say UK and America are one nation under a monarchy, and Canada. But that's another side of it. But I believe in a monarchy because monarchies are Africa's original model. Okay. And monarchies tie a single bloodline, or I say a single bloodline, but yeah, essentially a single bloodline to the prosperity of a people, be it a city, a village, an ethnic group, or a nation. And if that bloodline fails or begins to fail, that bloodline can be removed. But what you get in democracies is you get these very short-term, selfish outlooks of self-prosperity, these short terms of people just want to prosper themselves or prosper a small group of people, but normally just themselves and their immediate family at everybody else's expense until they lose that term and then someone else comes in and takes over. So they're essentially just bleeding the coffers as much as possible for that limited period of time that they're in power. I have yet to see, in my view, the model where someone doesn't have some kind of long-term what's the word when you're tied to something, you know, some kind of long-term, I don't know, someone will give me the word, but yeah, some kind of long-term tie to a nation that goes deeper than just the term that they're serving, that serves it well, particularly in Africa. And I think if you look at the smaller kind of like the little, you know, the villages, and, you know, for instance, the Obas, for instance, they serve their people better. Association will do, Jeffrey. Thanks very much for that. It's not the perfect word I was looking for. I want something stronger than association. But yeah, you get you've given me a better word than the word I had, which was absolutely nothing. So without someone having, you know, some kind of a long-term association with a nation, yeah, you get that where they just don't deal with the people correctly. They don't deal with the nation correctly. When you're a monarch, you don't have anywhere to go. Do you understand what I mean? You don't have anywhere to go. There's nowhere for you to go. There's nowhere for your son to go, okay, who might rule, or your daughter who might rule. There's nowhere for them to go. So you have to look after the people. You have to look after the nation. You have to make sure people are happy. This whole idea of being a despotic monarch, I don't really see it. I don't really see it. I think that democracy is something that's been sold to the world, but I believe it's been sold as a failing system because it's compatible with capitalism. That's totally my fault. I think it's sold because it's compatible with capitalism. We don't live in a democracy, by the way. Most nations are capito democracies. So what's the difference between a democracy and a capito democracy? A capito democracy essentially means the people with the most people who are most financially dexterous are the ones who end up being in position of leadership. And that's what happens around the world. And everyone is going like, oh yeah, democracy, Democrat rule, Democrat, other than voting that person into power, which you, by the way, you have to trust them for the result as well, by the way. But other than voting someone into power, what other power do you get to exercise in democracy? How many people how many nations partake in regular referendums? Which is really what people think of when they think of the democracy. Oh yeah, we get our say on everything. No, you don't. You get your 1 in 4 or 5 years say on who's gonna rule for a certain term, and then that's it. You don't get a say on anything else. That person can bring the nation to hell in that time with no consequences. So sorry, bit of a side note, but that's my fault on democracy. If I'm gonna be totally honest with you, I'm not a big fan of it.
We remain committed to democracy. irrespective of the fact that there are now reversers, even in Africa, around the world. In fact, these days, when you listen to world news and other things, you hardly hear about democracy. You're very right. But we are committed to it because it is the best form until we can provide an alternative that can really sit well with us in society. We remain committed to democracy.
I think it's a good idea to attempt to, over time, reinstall the relevance of the bloodlines, some of which still exist. Many of them have been killed off in various nations, but some of them, the bloodlines still exist. And I think having those serve alongside in a similar way that we have in the UK might, because people don't realize the UK is run by freaking monarchs and aristocrats, okay? Lords, okay? It's essentially run by lords and the Queen. What they put in front of you, okay? this prime minister and stuff, they're just little dudes who just do the little bit here and there, all right? They don't really run the nation, okay? The monarchs run the nation. The Queen has the power to disband Parliament, so essentially, you know, she's the most powerful person in that situation, you know? Is that the end of the video? That could be it. Yeah, okay, then it comes back. Here we go. Let's bring it back here. I thought that was the end.
Space and relatively new entrant.
Okay, let's bring it back here.
China is a relatively new entrant, really,
yes,
into the historical space and climb. China only lifted itself out of abject poverty over the last 40 years. We've been free from colonialism now in Botswana for almost 60 years. We have had an affinity with the West because of the relationship, the special relationship that we've had with them.
That's a nice way to put it, but I'll let him carry on because this guy's already earned a lot of credit from me for the way he was spitting some jewels earlier, so I'll let him carry on.
And China has only come in, and we relate with China on terms that we define ourselves. We look at what it is that China offers, what it is that we need, and we sit and good a deal as we are able to negotiate in a situation where all the parties come to the table and present their offerings. So I think the relations are shaped largely by what the interests of these African countries, ourselves included, are.
Interesting.
It is interesting indeed. Okay, so he's making it clear to you, framing to you that, and I think people in the West need to hear and need to understand that many, I'm not speaking for all, but many African nations' relationships with China and its trading partners are not these one way, being dictated to, being run around the houses. And even many Africans have this perspective, and it's like, you don't understand that that is not the nature of this relationship. Okay, this is a trading relationship. Africans are not going to China with the begging bowl like, oh, please buy our stuff. It's much more the other way around. There's a need for what Africa has in China and in many of these other nations. They need what Africa has, and Africa has an understanding of its bargaining power and its position. What the West wants to do, by the West framing China as a neo-colonialist or neo-imperialist, which is a term or a phrase they like to throw around. Yeah, China's neo-imperialist or neo-colonialist, is because by framing China in that way, it puts Africa in a victim position, and then everyone perceives Africa as being exploited by China, and then it makes their crap that they offer, which is often crap, seem more attractive, particularly if they can fool the rest of the world into believing that that is the case. All of a sudden now the West's crap sounds like it holds more weight. They have a bit more bargaining power. Oh, well, it's us or them, you know, they're exploiting you, we're exploiting you. And what I like about this, which is actually making me look positively on this conference as a whole, because these presidents are standing on business. What I like about this is it's making it very clear. No. Listen, you guys do not understand the nature of this relationship. We are choosing when we trade, how we trade, and how much we trade for. We're making those decisions. Yeah, we're making those decisions. So be very, very clear about that.
President Nagawa, what did you think of what happened in Venezuela last month?
Venezuela is very far away from Zimbabwe.
Yes, it is.
I love the fact that he said that, because he knew what Tucker. I mean, there's a 10% chance that Tucker asked that question in innocence, and he wasn't throwing a sly, underhanded. I mean, if you link that up with what Tucker said before in regards to Zimbabwe having learned its lessons from its historical behavior, to his next question to the same president being, hey, did you see what happened the other day to President President Maduro? Did you happen to catch that in you know, did you see on the news? Did you see what we did there? Yeah. How'd that make you feel? You feel safe right now? Do you? that's kind of what you know what he's getting at there. Yeah. And the straight answer the president gives him is like, yeah, that's very far from Zimbabwe. In other words, he's saying, look, you can try that move. Try that move with Zimbabwe. Okay, you got a lot of waters to cross before your special troops get out.
Yes, sir. But I wonder. I still wonder, as a head of state, a longtime head of state, what you thought of that. I mean, you must pay attention to what happens to other heads of state.
Yeah, but I don't know what we really read in Zimbabwe actually happens in Venezuela. But from what we read, we are interested to know why it is happening.
I like this president. I like this guy a lot. I like him a lot because kind of like his voice is like Tucker's there prodding and poking for a reaction. He's like, oh well, yeah, I saw it. Yeah, it's a long way away, isn't it? What a bunch of English guys do to a bunch of Spanish folk. What's it got to do with me? That's basically what he's saying. It's far away from me, and I'm in Africa. You telling me about your what you did to your Spanish neighbors got nothing to do with me, man.
But President B, what did you think?
I was stunned, and I'm still stunned. It was so surreal that I still have to understand whether the world order, the rules-based society, is still existing, and if not, what becomes of the world? That's why I earlier described the state as we are in a state of flux, because everything that we have understood as the basis for international order is fragmenting or being destroyed right in our face.
And I'm sorry, it felt like an unfair question, but that's exactly more to the point. What I'm asking is this a sign of a changing order? And I will end with you, President Boko. What was your response to it?
Well, I'd be interested to know what Tucker's response, because he's like saying, do you notice how we're talking about the behavior of America's president? Tucker Carlson is American. He's asking for their reaction. But do you notice how he's offered that question without a single word of condemnation for President Trump's actual behavior? Notice how he's framed that question. He hasn't like, oh, you saw our president go out there and, you know, it's something that was widely condemned by the international community and something that was illegal, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. He didn't say any of that. He was just like, oh, you know, you saw what happened. How did it feel? You know, this is that entire mindset. This is a position of someone who is sympathetic and still aligns themselves with the imperialist mindset. Whereas, well, I want to know what you guys think. What do you guys think? Because we're America, we're gonna do whatever the hell we want. So what's your response? It's not gonna change anything. I just kind of want to know how you feel. That's a very American outlook. He hasn't offered any qualitative assessment of what that behavior was and how it should be perceived. Do you understand? This is very deliberate. It places it. The question itself is asked to place himself in a position of kind of like power over these African leaders. It's very clever what he's doing here.
Well, I think we are seeing a world where rules seem to matter very little, and they matter only depending on who is benefiting from them and who is wielding the stick at any given point in time. We know that public international law respects territorial integrity, it respects the sovereignty of nations. And it also requires that the people of every nation state must exercise their self-determination. They must determine what happens within their borders. And to have external powers intrude and remove any head of state, regardless of what the circumstances are, I think it's something that is utterly shocking, and it is an affront to a rule-based international order. I think it must be described in starkly those terms and nothing pretentious.
And by the way, that's not the first time they've done that in Venezuela. It's the second time. I was a massive fan of Hugo Chavez. I know you'll hear negative things about him now, but he was an amazing leader, an amazing leader. He had actually very close ties with the African Union and other African leaders. He very much believed in the international community outside the US, and he was trying to build his nation up in that way. And he believed he died, by the way, of cancer, which took his life, I think, within a fortnight. Some rare, very aggressive form of cancer. And to his deathbed, he believed that he was targeted by the, by the Alphabet gang in the States. He took that to his deathbed. He didn't. So although the reports were he had this, he in himself said, what I've got has come from them. That's what he said. And you know what, anyway, let me not expand too much on that, but I would definitely wouldn't have paused to disbelieve him and believe the media. I'd believe him, if I'm going to be totally honest with you. So that's in my view, two Venezuelan presidents removed from office. At least.
Gentlemen, thank you for doing this and for your patience with my questions, and I really appreciate it very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
There you go. So there you go, guys. That was it. I just wanted to catch that. I was actually planning for that live stream to be about 2 hours. That's what I had in my head, and it ended up being almost exactly 2 hours. So amazing. There you go, guys. My first stream on the King Mono show, and we've managed to sustain an audience of around 70, which is pretty cool, guys. I really appreciate everyone who's taken the time to join me. Next time I might open up the StreamYard. And yeah, next time I think I might make more appeals for donations as well, just to make the time worthwhile investing. But I've appreciated and enjoyed my time with you guys. I hope you've appreciated the content and the insight. What did you think? Hit up the likes if you haven't done it already. Leave a comment in the actual main video as well, so that we can run up some views on this live stream after the fact. But hey, that was cool. I really enjoyed that. I don't get political. Those of you who know me from the King's Monologue channel, I don't do politics on the King's Monologue. I try to keep it separate. This was entirely politics, which is kind of why this channel exists. I can just talk about these kind of like side quest subjects and politics. So yeah, appreciate it. Thank you very much, Bamboo Shoot. RJ McKenzie, Macy, good to see you. How you doing, sis? Rainy, Jeffrey, how you doing, brother? Sir, I should say. Wealthy I Am, Joy, was reading through The Last Outlaw, Darth Skywalker, Nate Wheeler, Gabrielle Onibudo. I should just say Gabrielle instead of just butchering your name like that. Spikes, someone, I think it's someone. You just have got some numbers after your name now, but I think it's someone if I remember correctly. I think that's everyone. Yeah, and Min Nieri and Tammy Dorsey and Johan. Okay, and obviously and Kieran Grant, and a massive shout out to Rainey for the donation, and everybody else who's made it to this live stream. But I think on that note, and Jordan White who was here, yeah, Jordan White as well. I think that's everyone I've read out there. If you've left a comment and I didn't read out your name, accept my apologies. I only got so much time. And let me just quickly scroll down to the bottom, make sure nothing these come through. Catch up. There we go. Cool. Yeah, and we'll call it a day. Thank you very much, guys. Hope you've enjoyed it. Catch you on the next one. Leave a like, make sure you share it, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Peace.